So this recording is about Kundalini. I have had a Kundalini experience before, but that's not really important in this case. That was my own subjective experience. I'll talk about a little bit about what happened and why, unfortunately, in the end, it doesn't do anything for anyone other than convince them of something that it should not really convince them of. I'll go ahead and talk about my experience first, and then I'll talk about what it, in my opinion, and apparently the opinion of other people, that it is, that it does or doesn't do, and then how it may correlate to a form of exercise that someone can do that is actually beneficial to them, more beneficial, and will eventually yield similar results, but is much safer and much more, well, the results will be permanent if you do things right. So I do ask you to please pay attention if this is something you're interested in. You will likely not find this information anywhere else. I'm not sure if you should hear this information. Maybe you're not ready for it. I don't know. But in any case, I'm going to go on a limb and share it with you anyways. So going into my own personal experience, coming from a standpoint of a non-religious person in general, didn't really have any belief in anything. At that point, when I had first started doing meditation in general, it was more of a stress relief thing. I had tried all that I could. I was on anxiety pills, depression pills, I was on blood pressure pills too. I still am, but there's certain things that it just can't help. I was an atheist at the time. Now I just don't consider myself to be anything. There's really, the truth is the truth, and you just can't change it. So, but that's a different matter, and that's not the matter of this discussion. But in any case, during my experiences of Kundalini, it didn't start off as Kundalini at first. The meditation that I was doing at first was in relation to what the Buddhists may call Shinei or Jine meditation. Essentially what it is calming of the mind, attention on the breathing. It was mostly to relieve the incessant flow of thoughts. And if you can do that, you're further ahead of the game, and anything you can do, really. If you quiet your own mind, first of all, you can think a lot clearer. Just the incessant flow of thoughts is obnoxious. Just dealing with that. I'm not sure, it's all subjective in each person's own mind. Hard to say what it is that may or may not be occurring, but I know for me, for example, I can definitely say that I did have a lot of conflicting thoughts. So with that being said, after I felt fairly confident that I was able to reduce those thoughts, I stumbled upon a couple of Kundalini videos, not really knowing anything about it or anything spiritual really at that point in time. I just had just tried it. I just said, oh, what the hey, maybe something new to experience in meditation instead of doing the same thing all the time. So it became an experimental thing instead of a spiritual thing. And I began to notice something very subtle at first. Different videos, I'd be listening to different Kundalini videos that focus on different chakras. I'd heard about chakras before, but not really knowing anything about them. At different parts of your body will vibrate at different frequencies. If you're listening to different sort of meditations, you may have heard of things like binaural beats and stuff like that to induce different states of mind. So this is kind of like that in a way. You can get into it very deeply. I've done some research on it, and that's the scope of some of the research I'm doing now. But in any case, starting off with the base chakra, you may end up listening to some lower end frequencies such as bass, drums, a lot of I guess didgeridoos and stuff like that, or African music. Different drum and bass type stuff, not like techno drum and bass, but just like traditional drum and bass. Definitely you feel something. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I know I did. It's very subtle at first, and if you practice, not really practice, I guess it's just doing your meditation and paying attention to the different feelings that arise within yourself, bringing conscious attention, again, conscious attention to yourself during that meditation. Now that's a problem, because here's where the real thing comes in. This is the main problem of Kundalini, is that conscious attention, if it is actually done, if you're able to first of all slow the incessant flow of thoughts. This is why Shinei or Jnei meditation is especially useful prior to doing Kundalini, is because if you can't slow the incessant flow of thoughts, then you can't focus your conscious attention where it needs to be focused to make the energy rise within yourself from toe to head. Now, why I say toe to head is because Kundalini is not right the way it's done. You will get effects, you will have things happen, you will have results happen through normal Kundalini, but they will not be lasting results, if anything in fact does happen at all. But the key seems to be, first of all, again, eliminating the flow of incessant thoughts, number one. Number two, conscious attention to yourself. Now, if you're doing it in a different way, which is the right way really, because you need to not only awaken the mind, but awaken the body. And there's other things too that you have to do eventually along the way to get to what this is going to go beyond the scope of the recording, so I won't get into that. But what you really need to do in this particular case is begin your conscious attention on your toes. I recommend sitting in whatever's comfortable for you, whatever position. If you want to do, whatever type of, I guess they'd be called asanas, if that's the correct term, where you're sitting in, I don't know, a lotus position or whatever. That's not how I do it. I just sat in a chair, quite frankly. It doesn't matter how you're sitting as long as you're bringing conscious attention to yourself. So, sitting in a chair, you rise the attention from your feet, slowly up both legs, all the way up to your stomach. Keep on going up to your shoulders, down your arms, holding your hands together. You want the energy to pass through on both sides, come back up, the shoulders on the opposite ends, and eventually rise up to the top of the crown of the head and through it. And it's a slow, very, very slow process, very slow motion, because the slower you do it, the more energy you create within yourself. And what you're supposed to do with this particular exercise that was given to me is you carry that with you throughout the day. Once you're done, I know maybe you do it for 15 minutes, that's what's been recommended to me. You do it for 15 minutes when you're sitting down, from the toes to the back of the heel, all the way up the legs, and again, all the way up through the crown of the head. Go back if you need to hear it again. There's another video if you'd like. Request it and I'll send it to you. On the specific exercise, I actually go through the exercise and do it. But in any case, you're supposed to carry this conscious attention with you throughout the day. This is where people get lost and where Kundalini becomes a failure, is because people don't continue to bring conscious attention to themselves throughout the day. And furthermore, they only do it through their spine up to the top of the head. So rather than doing their whole body, they just do the spine to the head. This is where there's been a correlation between Kundalini and what is known as the fourth way. Now this exercise is mentioned in Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, a very long book. It's about a 1,200-page book, but it is in there, and it very briefly mentions it. Beelzebub mentions it to his grandson, Hassan, or Hassan, however you want to say it, and tells him that when a man rises What he should do is bring conscious attention to himself and then carry it with him throughout the day. It's more or less what he says. There's another part that I'd like to read from In Search of the Miraculous by P.D. Ouspensky, which is a student of Gurdjieff. If you don't want to listen any further, that's fine, but it'll give you an idea of why Kundalini doesn't necessarily work. So I'm going to go ahead and read it and decide for yourself if you think someone's lying, if you think I'm lying, if you think Gurdjieff was lying, or if in fact Ouspensky was lying, or maybe you see that there's some truth to what I have to say, and the reason why Kundalini really doesn't do anything for anyone. Okay, so page 220 of In Search of the Miraculous by Peter D. Ouspensky. In so-called occult literature, you've probably met with the expression Kundalini, the fire of Kundalini, or the serpent of Kundalini. This expression is often used to designate some kind of strange force which is present in man and which can be awakened. But none of the known theories gives the right explanation of the force of Kundalini. Sometimes it is connected with sex energy. That is, with the idea of the possibility of using sex energy for other purposes. This later is entirely wrong because Kundalini can be in anything. And above all, Kundalini is not anything desirable or useful for a man's development. It is very curious how these occultists have got hold of the word from somewhere, but have completely altered its meaning, and from a very dangerous and terrible thing, have made something to be hoped for and to be awaited as some blessing. In reality, Kundalini is the power of imagination, the power of fantasy, which takes the place of a real function. When a man dreams instead of acting, when his dreams take the place of reality, when a man imagines himself to be an eagle, a lion, or a magician, it is the force of Kundalini acting in him. Kundalini can act in all centers, and with its help, all the centers can be satisfied with the imaginary instead of the real. A sheep which considers itself a lion or magician lives under the power of Kundalini. Kundalini is a force put into men in order to keep them in their present state. If men could really see their true position and could understand all the horror of it, they would be unable to remain where they are, even for 1 second. They would begin to seek a way out, and they would quickly find it, because there is a way out. But men fail to see it simply because they are hypnotized. Kundalini is a force that keeps them in a hypnotic state. To awaken for man means to be dehypnotized. And this lies a chief difficulty, and in this also lies the guarantee of its possibility. For there is no organic reason for sleep, and man can awaken. Theoretically he can, but practically it is almost impossible, because as soon as a man awakens for a moment and opens his eyes, all the forces that cause him to fall asleep begin to act upon him with tenfold energy, and he immediately falls asleep again, and very often dreaming that he is awake or is awakening. There are certain states in ordinary sleep in which man wants to awaken but cannot. He tells himself that he is awake, but in reality he continues to sleep, and this can happen several times before he finally awakes. But in ordinary sleep, once he is awake, he is in a different state. In hypnotic sleep, the case is otherwise. There are no objective characteristics, at any rate not at the beginning of the awakening. A man cannot pinch himself in order to make sure that he is not asleep. And if, which God forbid, a man has heard anything about objective characteristics, Kundalini at once transforms it all into imagination and dreams. Only a man who fully realizes the difficulty of awakening can understand the necessity of long and hard work in order to awake. So with that being said, I just wanted to briefly talk about my own Kundalini experience. I definitely did have what some might call a Kundalini awakening. Of course, that's not really true because, again, it doesn't really keep anyone awake. I quickly, after about, I'd say a week or maybe 2 weeks, initially at first, what I had experienced is what they refer to as the divine tears. I had just been experimenting with the different vibrational frequencies, and one day I just came across a video with a certain bell, and as soon as I heard that bell, I just doubled over and just started weeping uncontrollably. But it was a blissful experience at the same time. It was just beautiful. I don't know why it happened. It just seemed to, that certain frequency of that bell just opened everything up. And the best way I can describe it is like, it's just amazing. But that's a problem with the Kundalini experience, is because it's so beautiful, so powerful, that it can keep you in a state of sleep. And you ask, how can that be? Well, I mean, for about a good week or two, I experienced what I can only describe as pure bliss. And then I had several different things which I can only describe as possibly psychic abilities, or not necessarily psychic, but more like empathic abilities. And other things happened along the way where I saw events happen, and actually they did eventually happen after I saw them happen, in particular visions that I had. But that all goes away. That, for me, that went away anyhow. It didn't stick with me. It just left. And that's because I didn't know how to stay awake. At least that's what I'm assuming. Because the problem was that conscious attention was not used. Only during the meditation, during the Kundalini meditation, was I bringing conscious attention from the base of my spine to my head. And even then, I didn't even consider the rest of my body. And so that's where I went wrong, number one. And again, I didn't carry that with me throughout the rest of the day. So that's why it's important to not only meditate during the day, in the morning, or whatever it is that you meditate. Usually, really, to get any good amount of anything out of it, it should be in the morning when you first wake up. Spend 15 minutes raising your attention, your conscious attention, from your toes all the way to the top of your head, as I said before in that particular exercise. And then the real meditation actually is throughout the day. You bring conscious attention to every part of your body if you can. That's what it means to remember yourself. If you don't feel yourself, if you're not present, and I know people say, oh, I'm present in every moment, I'm this and I'm that. That's not true. There's no way for me to prove it to you. The only way you can see that is if you actually are able to, over time, doing this exercise in the morning, see that you are actually creating energy within yourself. And then not too much longer after you get up from your seat, go downstairs or go wherever it is to have your breakfast and make your coffee, you'll soon see that it disappears very quickly.